My name is Larry Henderson, and I'm a Senior QA Manager. The HP product I'll be discussing today is HP Service Virtualization. Going into the purchase of HP Service Virtualization, prior to the purchase, we actually ran into quite a few gotchas with third parties, with integrations, internal integrations, where teams weren't quite ready with their services. The consuming clients at a point where they were held up, delayed in their delivery. So we watched our delivery cycles actually go from being in sprint, in lockstep, and delivering, with let's say a 3 or 4 week cadence or 3 or 4 sprint cadence. It would bunch out. They would wait till the services team completed all their work, all their functional testing before they would start consuming the services. And I looked at that and saw the inefficiencies of it. Kind of pulled the ROI together, getting a tool. Started playing with all the various tools, open source tools, other big vendors, and it just turned out that this one worked best in our environment. The biggest savings we've had from it is by mocking out our third-party calls. We don't have those, the 1 cent, 2 cent per call hits anymore, bills coming back to us. We don't have to worry about performance testing, so we can mock it out with the service virtualization. And the biggest gain for me, that was cool, but the biggest gain for me was actually having our internal customers be able to dev in sprint with the services team. We save so much time doing that. So some of the valuable features that I've found in the tool is we're a big TIBCO shop, so there's a lot around TIBCO that has been very valuable for us. TIBCO EMS virtualization. We have a little MSMQ, so that was enticing. Haven't really dabbled in that much yet. The ability to bring in .NET services, have it stand up all the virtual endpoints pretty quick and put it into a learning mode where I can turn it on, let the functional testers test against the real services all day, take that snapshot, turn it over to my performance test team, minor tweaks, and now I'm running a full performance test with faked out third parties with minimal development effort on my side. It's awesome. Another feature that it's still in beta, but it's coming up, that's I'm already starting to leverage, is the scripted rule that they put out there. It's JavaScript and C#. We're a heavy C# shop, so I have my choice of developers. I go around and say, hey, help me develop something that's a little smarter, a smarter virtualized service. And it's easy. I just show it to them, they get it, and stand it up, and it's good. So some other benefits, I actually think I made the tool do something it wasn't really meant to do, but it worked perfect for my environment. So we had a big project to tokenize credit cards. We wanted to get out of the business of hanging on to credit card numbers because of the inherent risk. So we had a massive project to come in, tokenize those credit cards. One problem is the vendor, much like any other third party, comes back and says, well, we don't have a performance environment for this. So if you performance test against our environment, we're going to cut your access off because that's going to impact other people. So naturally, the team turned to me and said, hey, what do we have? Can we virtualize this? I reviewed what they were doing, and it was not a service call. It was actually a website form post. So I turned the call into a REST call, slid it into the config file, told it to point to my service virtualization, and it worked just like an HTML post call, and it worked perfectly. We were up and running probably within a day with this virtualized endpoint. I couldn't believe it because that's not what the tool was made for, but it worked perfect. So that was one of those added benefit, undocumented features, right? Yeah, so the stability of the product, it's still a work in progress. There's some times that, just honestly, I do have to go onto the system, and just the other day we had one service that had been running for months with no problem, and then for some reason it just stopped working. I could have reached out to support to get an answer. They're usually pretty responsive and get it solved for me pretty quickly, but for the sake of expediency, because we were blocking people, I had to go in and remove and rebuild the service virtual endpoint. The good thing is it took me 30 seconds to do it. The bad thing is I had all my data that I had saved gone. I could get it back. It's not a big deal. But so stability-wise, it's not bulletproof, but I haven't had a major outage until the other day of that one service that has caused any issues. There's been no ripple effects because of that. So on technical support, now this is where it gets a little tricky, because I purchased this through a reseller, so my frontline support does come from my reseller. I've had to have a few things escalated up to HP support outside of that tier 1 level. They're pretty responsive, they get back pretty quick, they're very interested. I was kind of shocked when I was walking around Discover and I had a few of their solution architects go, "Oh, we know you. You have success stories and you've had issues, and I've looked into your issues." I'm like, "I don't even know you. How do you know me?" So it's nice to know that they have this. They definitely have a pulse on it. They want to improve the product and be on top of things. They're not looking to just kind of fix it as it goes. It's just they want to continuously improve it. So I've had no problems with scalability. I've run. We're doing a service gateway stress test right now in our production-like environment to understand if this gateway that we purchase is going to be scalable for our big retail time period, like fourth quarter time period. The service gateway said that they virtualize services, which their definition of virtual services is different than a testing industry's description of it. So I had to create my own endpoint, expose it through the gateway, execute stress tests against it, and my bottleneck ended up being on the service gateway, not on the virtual endpoint, and we were hitting well over 1,600 transactions per second, and my memory footprint on my virtual machine, so it's a virtual machine running service virtualization too, was my CPU was probably right around 40% or so. So I mean, I still had way more scalability to go off this one instance. The implementation, I didn't really have any hiccups with the installation. It's pretty straightforward. There are a few things if you want to use some of the new features that are in that beta mode that you have to go in and you have to be very familiar with how to modify specific config files. I'm just naturally inquisitive, so I just started digging through the config files on my own. I don't recommend that unless you're just that kind of person, but other than that, just out of the box setup, it was so easy to stand up. Maybe the most challenging thing that we had was overcoming an issue with SQL Server implementation, because I didn't realize that each user that accesses service virtualization has to have their own development database instance inside SQL Server. So we all shared the same instance and kept overwriting everyone's work. I found it in the documentation, it was there. I'm one of those guys that kind of implements first and reads documents later. And once I found it, my temper level went down with the vendor, even though I think that's something that could be improved upon. You should be able to share databases, but outside of that, everything else went pretty smooth. I had to think about that, about what additional features I'd like in service virtualization quite a lot while here, especially when the solution architects are saying, "Hey, we know you." Improvements, more like enhancements with the REST API would be one. I think another thing I would rather see them implement is better use for their data-driven model. Right now they're using Excel spreadsheets. I would like to see them implement a database instead of Excel spreadsheets, because sometimes you open an Excel spreadsheet that the data-driven model built and it's like 200 sheets big. It's unmanageable. But the SQL Server implementation that they provide now is through the scripted roles in C#, and that's not going to be great for non-C# developers or JavaScript or something at that point. They need to make it as part of the core tool. We did look at IBM's solution. I looked at CA Lisa. We also looked into Ready API by SmartBear, which the SmartBear one was going to be a little too complicated for some of the team members I had. It wasn't bad, it just was a little too complicated. IBM was coming in kind of at the same price, but I guess I kind of have a little HP bias. Lisa was just outrageous for our budget. We could not afford Lisa. And I even worked with some people that worked at Lisa in the Dallas area and said, "No, you can't afford it. It's not going to work." So when we brought it in and did the proof of concept, I was told by quite a few people in the industry that said, "Here's the deal. If you get it in and you can implement the first service that you execute and it fires right up and it works for you, it's going to work for everything in your group." Brought it in, implemented it. It took me probably no less than 30 seconds to stand up a virtual service, start consuming it in my performance environment. I was sold from that. Some of the criteria I look at while looking to purchase one of these service virtualization tool was ease of use, because I'm going to have to give it to, in my org, the QA team owns it, not the developers. The developers, the whole shift left idea for development works partially, but they are so slammed to meet tight deadlines that I can't throw another tool on them. On the other note, I don't have SDETs on my team. I have QA analysts, so they're not all completely technical. They dabble a little in it, so I wanted something that they could pretty much do a drag and drop into it. I wanted something that would be easy to discuss with my ops teams to let them understand what I needed deployed to be successful in the environment. I was blown away with how fast the implementation was. I took the demo off the website, deployed it, ran with my engineering team, probably spent maybe half a day getting everything I needed stood up, and then shortly thereafter, we just decided, all right, we're gonna buy this because it's working fantastic. Bought the license, dumped it right on top of it, and still kept going. I mean, it was no problem. So ease of use, the ability to quickly stand something up. And when I mean quickly, I mean someone's calling me on the phone saying, I'm blocked, I need this. The ability to stand up and test immediately is huge. I'd probably put it closer to 6 or 7 because it's still maturing, to be honest. Just be out there about it. I know that they went through a major change between, I think, the 2.0 release into this 3.x release. I didn't buy it prior to that, but I've been reading up on it. Stability's been all right. The implementation needs a little assistance, like I talked about. I would probably say ease of use really puts my number up. When I was grading it between the other ones, that was top notch for me, was the ease of use. I'd like to see maybe some more documentation around APIs that are available to it so I don't have to use other HP tools to integrate with it, because I don't have a whole suite of HP tools at my company. So like our automation, for example, is not UFT, it's ran through a homegrown automation solution. So I know the REST API is available, but it's not documented, and I know ways that I can extract that information, but I don't want to do it that way because that's a lot of work on my part. So I've talked to their solution architects, and they said that, yeah, this will become available. Just hold on, we're baking it out. So I'm a little impatient, I guess. I want, moving into like a DevOps world, you kind of want to get away from a lot of manual clicks and make it fully automated as much as possible. And that's one of the components for me to make it automated. So when evaluating these tools, make sure that it works for the infrastructure that you have. I talked to a former colleague that was researching tools out there. They had already purchased IBM Greenhat, only to find out that he inherited it, and he found out that he couldn't do anything with MQ series, which that was a pretty big blow for him because he really needed MQ series out there. So make sure that your technologies are definitely supported by the tool. Do a very thorough proof of concept on it. I said it was really easy to set up, and it was fantastic, but we ran it through different scenarios. I brought out some technical specialists not from HP, but my reseller, to sit there and show us how it works with TIBCO EMS, how it works with WCF services, how does it work with REST, do a full soup du jour on it in our environment. That's probably the biggest thing I would say, is don't do it on the canned services or websites that always work in demo mode. Do it on your stuff. If it works on your infrastructure, then you're going to be in good shape. So when reviewing these tools for purchase, I didn't just do it in a vacuum, because then I know I'm going to be biased, because I'll start playing with a tool that I like, but really when it comes down to it, I'm not the person using it. My team will be using it. So not only did I solicit internal feedback from various teams, not even just my team, but the dev team and some of our business analysts who are supporting us, I also went out and talked to former colleagues in the marketplace that are kind of dabbling in the same area. To make that purchase, if I did it in a vacuum, I'd probably be wasting a lot of money for the company, because I wouldn't be selecting the correct solution. I'd be selecting a solution for me.